Hello guys, in this video I'm going to share with you how we configure subcontractors in Odoo. But before we look at the computer screen and navigate around this ERP system, there is this caveat that I want to make clear from the beginning so that you see the difference between what we would ideally want to be able to track in real life when it comes to subcontractors and what we could do for now with Odoo. So there is this limitation with Odoo for the moment. With that in mind, let's now think about the general flow of production. So the general story is when we produce apparel, there are these stages. You got cutting stage, sewing stage, washing stage, finishing stage, and that's how we transform fabric and any other accessories into a finished piece of garments, say a pair of pants. Let's take a look at the first production stage, that is cutting. Now, the input for this activity, for this stage is fabric, obviously, the main fabric, the linings and interfacing. You send those things to the cutting team, and we do it in-house in our own factory. The cutting team cut things up, and the output that you receive from that is essentially these things. You see, cut pieces of fabric ready to be sewn up. So you got the main fabric, you got the linings for the pockets, you got the interfacing tool, it's already here. This output from the cutting stage would be given a product code called, I would call it work in progress, ready for sewing. Now let's move on to the next production stage, that is sewing. We would have these things, this product code, work in progress ready for sewing, as the input for this next stage. And also, we would need to consume other things, accessories, in this case zippers, so that these would be sent to a subcontracting sewer, and they would do the job of sewing things up and produce an output that is called a product code again, work in progress, ready for washing. And it's essentially something like this. You see, things are sewn up into one piece. You don't see the buttons here because buttons are accessories for a later stage, the finishing stage. But never mind, we only care about zippers here in our story, in this video. Now, this is where things differ in real life and Odoo, right? Think about the bill of material, okay? So let's say this is the first time you do business with this subcontracting sewer, and we want to produce 1,000 units of output from this sewer, 1,000 units of work in progress ready for washing. That means I am supposed to provide this subcontractor with input, 1,000 units of work in progress ready for sewing, obviously, and 1,000 units of zippers. In this case, it's a one-to-one relationship, so it's straightforward. Accessories actually could be anything other than zippers, depending on the type of garments. It could be elastic band, size labels, leather labels, eyelets, zippers, you name it, drawstrings, and in this case, it's a unit. In other cases, the units of measurements could be kilograms. But anyway, the point here is I'm supposed to provide the subcontracting sewer 1,000 units of zippers. In real life, what typically happens is I would manually enter the quantity so that I send him or her more than he or she needs. So instead of sending them 1,000, I send them 1,100 units so that they have more than they need. You know, they make mistakes, things are broken, so they have extra stuff to work with. Now, the second time we do business, I still want to produce 1,000 units of output from the sewer. And this time, the bill of material would trigger that, yeah, I'm going to send him 1,000 units of this. And this time, what I would want to happen with an ERP system is it would trigger an automatic inventory transfer of 900 units of zippers only, not 1,000, because remember last time, that guy still has inventory on hand of 100 units of zippers. He received 1,100, but he's supposed to consume only 1,000 units based on the bill of materials. So inventory on hand of 100, demanded output, bill of material 1,000, 1,000 minus 900, or 100, that's 900, straightforward. That's real life. But in Odoo, that's not how it works. We have this limitation where for Odoo, it doesn't care about the inventory on hand or inventory available at subcontracting locations. All it cares about is the bill of material. Let's say the first time you do business with a guy, you want 1,000 units of output from the sewer. Bang, automatically an inventory transfer of 1,000 units of zippers is triggered, is generated, waiting for you to confirm or validate. The second time you do business with them, it doesn't matter if you manually entered the inventories transfer previously so that you sent them more than they need, like 5,000, 6,000 units of zippers, it doesn't care. Next time you want to produce 2,000 units of this, bang, automatically an inventory transfer document of 2,000 units of zippers would be triggered, would be generated. So keep that in mind when I walk you through in the next part of the video, when I walk you through the configuration setup for subcontractors and subcontracting locations, okay? You first need to create subcontractor locations, and they are basically these physical locations. For example, work in progress, so CHUYEN. This is our internal sewing team, but we're gonna treat them as a subcontractor for our purposes to simplify matters, all right? Next, this is the configuration related to that subcontractor location. You want to put it as an internal location and its physical locations as the parent's location. Next. Now, that was the location. Next, we want to set up the vendor, which is a subcontractor, okay? What you need to pay attention to is down here, the subcontractor location, physical locations, there, that location that you just created in the previous step. And in this example, the vendor in charge is this vendor. Next, you go into inventory, configuration, rules, and then group all the rules based on route. This is the interface that you get. Our goal now is to create a new rule that belongs to the route resupply subcontractor on order, and which will be applicable to the subcontracting location that we just created. Next. And here you go. This is rule number 1, resupply subcontractor on order. The configuration here is basically telling you that if the destination location, which is a virtual location's production, demands input for production, a stock delivery is triggered to consume that necessary input for this production. See, delivery order. But the question is, how does this location get such input to provide for the production in this virtual production process? The supply method triggers another rule. Now, the note here, next time you just duplicate this rule when you're creating a new subcontractor, all right? Read the note here, it explains itself. So that was rule number 1. So we were talking about rule number 1, which belonged to this route. Now we want to look at this route, and we want to create the second rule. Okay. So this is the second rule. The explanation is here. Destination location is our subcontracting location. It demands input as triggered by the previous rule, rule number 1. So a stock delivery, aka out picking, is triggered. Delivery order to send the necessary input from WH stock to this subcontractor location. And in particular, the method is take from stock. And again, next time you don't have to remember all these setups, just duplicate the rule and edit the destination location. Next. We are done. Now it's time to review what happened after all that we've gone through. So you go into inventory, configuration, and look at routes. You see rule number 1 is created. It should show as a line item among these line items here. So one route contains a couple of rules, and we already created a new rule, another line item for this route, which is rule number 1. And as we saw before, rule number 1 would trigger rule number 2 in another route. This one. So pay attention to this box, alright? We talked about route, we talked about rules within route, but we also want to make sure that our products play with such route. So if you have it ticked right here, let's take a look at the master data for our product. Here you go. Make sure this configuration setting is ticked. Resupply subcontractor on order, which is the route. And we specified that for this product, we want it to play with its route. And that is how you set up subcontractors. Alright, here's my final word about subcontracting. Main fabric, minor fabric for linings and pipings. So the point here is not all outsourced services deserve tracking the related inventory, and not all outsourced vendors deserve being treated as a subcontractor. Why is that? As you could see in the demonstration just before this, it takes time and focus and accuracy to create subcontracting locations and configure that location to the relevant vendor, and then you have to create rules relating to certain routes, and you have to configure such route to certain products. So it takes time, and in reality we may want to skip all that hassle. So here, minor fabric does get transferred to the vendor's location in real life, alright? But we only record AP when we get back the cut, lining, or piping pieces, because it's such a trivial step and we don't want to bother. Okay, same goes for interlining. It's outsourced to other vendors. And here you can imagine how things can be so complicated. You have a new product category called work in progress interlining that's already cut, rather than the fabric that's not cut yet. So you create a new category for products. It is part of a subcontracting BOM. Oh my god. And then subcontracting location is configured, etc. Yeah. Make life simple, man. On the other hand, it's just up to us, We may want to break it down for the main fabric when it is a case where you get raw fabric, which doesn't have any color yet. And then after dyeing, you would know out of 1000 meters of raw fabric, for example, 400 is this color, 600 meters is another color. So you have one product code at this step, and then you have different product codes at this step. Could be two variants of the same product code, but at another stage. So here product variants are not determined yet at the first step when we purchase the raw fabric. So yeah, you may want to break things down if you want to be specific in the right place.